Well, yeah, there was a big transition in my life. There was like a lot of teams interested in me at that time. I was like starting to win contests. I started entering pro contests. Like Sims was interested, and Z was interested, and even Stacy came along and asked me to join Bones Brigade, and I said no.
Wow.
He at a contest has happened,
At
or
Marina. I was skating with Stacy all the time at Marina.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
why did you say no?
You know, I just felt it wasn't a right fit.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, even though Tony wasn't on the team yet. Lance wasn't on the team.
What year is this, by the way?
All right, so
what
this
year
is
is
early
this?
on. This is early on.
79, possibly 80.
Okay.
Right. And so he was like, and he sits me down. It was real serious. It was like right, that where we were watching that slalom.
Yeah.
It was up there. And there was no slalom race going on, but it was like against this fence. And he brought me aside and he goes, Pat, I'm doing this thing and I want you to be a part of it. And then I said no. And then instantly Jay Smith, who was on the team, comes over to me. He's like, dude, what are you doing? And I just I didn't really have an answer. And I never really had like mentors or a father, to like help me through these things. And I just felt like, okay, I didn't really see it. I didn't really see the connection of like of how that was going to be. Was stoked on Stacy.
Yeah.
And I was stoked on Cab and Ray Bones. But I don't know. I said no. And then the rest is history.
Did it was early on. Go ahead.
Yeah. Did he tell you what he wanted to do? Like get some newer guys on the team and work with?
No. And the whole vision, I mean, for what it was at the time, it was still really good.
Yeah.
He had Bones Brigade. He was already starting to build that concept out. And, I liked the boards, and I was really stoked on Stacy, and it was such an honor that he had asked me. But, and then as time went on, I mean, of course, I had regrets when I saw how big it became and like all the names and everything,
Yeah.
But I don't know. You make your decisions, and you
Didn't you call him back up? You're like, hey, dude, hey, what's going on, man?
Back.
Yeah.
A year later.
Yeah. No, I just kept going with skating, and it would have been totally different because they had money and they had drive, and I was with teams that just didn't have that sort of thing.
Did you see people starting to make a lot of money at that point?
No. And that was another thing, right? Like I even then, $1,000 was kind of a lot of money, but I was watching guys win a contest, and they'd only get $1,000, and I was, and I knew all the pros back then, and I would hear the stories of like, them kind of scratching to pay rent. So I was already thinking like, what am I going to do? And I decided that I was going to go to school and started taking classes, and I ended up over at LMU, and I was still skating, but I graduated with an arts degree.
Okay. And this is when kind of 81, like skateboarding took a big dive. So you kind of went off and said, well, there's obviously not that much money in this. I'm going to go to school and is that kind of what happened?
Well, so skate parks died.
Yeah.
And that was a really big thing for a lot of us. And then it started going more half pipes.
Yeah.
And I kind of didn't like half pipes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't backyard have the...
I did a little bit,
okay.
And because I still love skating, and that was the only thing that was there. And yeah, there's tons of photos of me on half pipes, and I did contests, and I was traveling around the world doing contests, but I didn't really like it as much as I liked bowls, and so I kind of resisted it. And then I was, at that same, was at that age, and we were talking about it, like you're thinking about like getting out of the house and getting an apartment, and you got to pay your gas and insurance and things. So how do you do that? So I figured I better have a plan B here.
Okay.
And go to school, and so I got my degree, and then I was, but I was still skating, and I still loved it. And one of the things that changed was that street skating really popped up.
Right.
Right. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this. And I love the inventiveness of it. I love, there was momentum there. And I was traveling. I was picked up on teams. And I love traveling too, by the way. And that was another big win.
Biggest perk in skateboarding.
Isn't it?
For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh my God, 100%. I'm going to Europe for free, you know?
Oh, I say it all the time. I probably would have never left the country if it wasn't for skateboarding.
Yeah.
To this day, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying, but it was so easy. You got taken care of. You could get put on a flight and...
Here's your itinerary.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah, there'll be somebody there to pick you up. You know?
And not to mention, you get to go skateboarding.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
You know, you meet all these different people and accents. And then usually when you're going to these places, you're far better than, you know, everybody, you know, especially back then.
They're behind.
Well, yeah, they were barely doing it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, you're like this kind of weird anomaly. Like, whoa, like, how do you learn to do these tricks, you know? So,
Oh, yeah, because they're getting the videos late, the magazines late.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, especially coming from the States.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, and skateboarding was changing so fast, too, back then, right? And so, like, 1 minute we're in bowls, next minute we're in half pipes, and then we're doing mini ramps, and then it's street skating. So there was a lag
So true.
for the world. They could never keep up what was going on with the leading edge of skating.
Yeah, yeah.
So true.
And a lot of skaters, I think, couldn't keep up as well because, like, you know, there it's a famous like street cab. You know, he transitioned pretty well, and there were some people that just couldn't.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And that's one thing that's always impressed me about Hosoi, and it kind of motivated me, was like, wow, like he's so good on everything. And I wanted to do that too. And that's what got me into the street contests and mini ramps and back, you know, we were already skating backyard pools, but to apply yourself and to progress in all these different terrains was something that I was always impressed about Christian. He just never held back.
Because we were talking about the Savannah Slam 3.
Yeah, I think you adapted pretty well.
Yeah, dude.
Based on that contest alone. I mean, that contest stood out majorly for me back then, and obviously to see you in that was pretty rad.
Yeah, I started having like really good results, and the sponsors were happy, and I was traveling a lot. I had a lot of momentum. I was getting like top 10 or in the finals in almost every contest. And then there was like the innovation part, right? Like in this one here, at some point I do that little elevator slide, right? Which to me is like, I wanted to innovate, and I wanted to do lines that were a little different and that kind of separated you from the rest of the other skaters.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this arena type style skateboarding right here. Before Street League, this is what we had.
Yeah. Well,
so cool.
Pat has already just done one trick, and he's pushed about 8,000 times.
It's pretty widespread.
Yeah.
Is this the weird? Or you
go
back again and
that
do it,
right there was a hurricane, and that's got like 4 feet of vert. So I was kind of proud about that.
There it is. Go on.
Little surf.
Yep.
Little transfer.
Yeah, you do it when you go back over.
Yeah.
How much time did you have here? A minute? 2 minutes? I mean,
at least 45, but you're right. Maybe 60 seconds.
Right.
That's a lot of area to push through.
It
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
man.
I think this is what you're talking about, right?
out.
Yeah, almost they were taking breaks a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could eat lunch and come back.
Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah. So that I was really proud about that, and just coming up with tricks, you know.
Yeah. Look at this. Oh, he's going not. There's the nose wheelie.
Yeah.
Had anyone just been doing nose? There was always nose mayo like that. Was it ever just a regular like nose mayo at that point?
Christian did that.
That right there,
And Scott Austin.
what I was doing,
Yeah.
that was a total takeoff of like Stacy Peralta and the early freestyle skaters. But what they cut out and they don't show is I shove it out of that. You know, so I was like trying to like throw a little modernization into it.
Right. Yeah, because Steve was talking about doing the nose with, and he said he was trying to get like put something on the nose of his board
To give it more leverage.
so he could like an
space.
extra wheel or something, so he could like.
Olsen?
Yeah,
Really?
Down.
yeah. He was like trying to make something so he could like do it, but then later on he was just like, oh, I just did it. Without anything.
Okay.
But he was like trying to make these contraptions.
Wow.
To like try to do this nose wheelie
funny.
thing. But you did a lot of like the manuals, right? Weren't you
Yeah.
like the innovator in that kind of, so to speak, or
Yeah, totally. And you know what? I'll say like with that trick, you know, this elevator slide, the manual roll was, I mean, a lot of that came from the skaters that I was watching, right? So I felt that my riding foundation came from guys like Brad Bowman and Steve Olson and Steve Alba. But then there was skaters like Eddie Alguera and Dwayne Peters who were on this cutting edge of like introducing new tricks. And in fact, I remember watching I was at a contest and I watched Dwayne Peters do a run. And I don't know if anyone caught this, but I certainly did, is that he did an entire run of tricks that he had invented. Right? I mean, who can do that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You know? And it was so impressive, and it like just stuck in my head that if you want to be a pro, if you want to progress, if you want to continue doing this, then you're going to have to come up with your own things. So the manual roll, you know, I have to like tell like, you know, like young skaters, like, dude, it's not a wheelie, right? A wheelie is a wheelie. A manual roll is you have a pre-existing trick and you throw the wheelie in between for a little bit more of degree of difficulty and style, right? So if you're going to do an ollie up a, you know, like that right there where we're watching on the stage, you're olling up.
Right.
And then degree of difficulty. I'm going to catch it on my back wheels.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then I'm going to throw my style in there, and then I'm going to do a trick out. So for me, you know, so the basic concept in the beginning was back then rolling out of a pool and rolling back into a pool frontside was actually kind of hard and a trick in itself.
Sure.
So I said, all right, I'm going to up the game a little bit, and I'm going to hold the wheelie, and then do it.
Right.
And you know, luckily, guys like Cab and Lance remember it, and they were like, "Yeah, that's your trick." And then I was like, "Well, if it's my trick, then how did it get the name manual roll?"
Manual, yeah.
Like, where did that come from, right? And then so Lance, you know, he just is the Wikipedia of skateboarding. He knows everything. He was like, "Well," and then because that came from John Lucero, and apparently the story is that John, as you guys might know, was like one of the innovators of street skating. So he apparently got like kicked out of Whittier Skate Park, and he was skating in the parking lot or something. And he was doing all these street tricks, early street tricks in the parking lot. And then one of them was what he called, like he would do something into a manual roll. And they were like, "Why do you call it a manual roll?" "Because I manually do it like Pat Ngoho." And that was his answer. I know. I don't. Yeah.
That's actually amazing.
Yeah.
So it is kind of after you.
Oh yeah. No, they all give me the credit.
Oh, I thought your middle name was Manual.
No.
No.
I mean, that would be good.
Pat Manual Ngoho.
Yeah.
Manuel.
Manuel. No, that's amazing.
Yeah. No. I mean, you know, like the fact that they have like Red Bull has like a Mania.
Yep.
And you know, and it's great whenever I watch skating and I see people do that trick.
Well, I base my whole career on manuals, you know, so
really,
100%. And
Okay.
it's the hardest shit in skateboarding too, you know, just to hold them, do a trick into a manual, hold it, maybe do a trick out, switch, nollie, fakie, you know.
So here's a question. Like I've watched some of the Barracks game of skate.
Oh yeah.
Right. And in some of those games of skates, they say no manual rolls.
Right.
Why is that?
It's not really
It's like it's just not really a part of flip tricks should just be flip tricks.
I see.
It shouldn't. You're putting another type of skateboarding into a flat ground.
It's
thing.
like the discipline, right? It's, if you want to put it that way, it's like you got the flat ground tricks, but then, and that's kind of why, you know, if you wanted to, you could do a game of skate with manuals. You could do a game of skate downstairs, but yeah, it's just not something that, because you could be playing a flat ground game of skate with somebody who doesn't do manuals.
Okay.
And now you're totally
just
it's
clean them
just,
up.
Yeah.
And not that I was offended.
No.
No.
But I actually saw a game of skate between you two guys.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's way later in our career.
Okay.
That's way later.
I was impressed. There was some solid tricks in there.
I was
a little
bit of a comedy.
Yeah, that was more comedy.
routine.
In our prime, That would have been a fun game to skate. I don't think we ever did back then.
Well, in the beginning, you guys start off kind of like whatever, pop shove-its and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it starts getting real serious.
Well, we're serious people.
No, meaning, I don't know all the tricks.
Yeah.
And like how, I don't know, you guys were doing some switch crazy stuff.